Hello everyone, my name is Taylor Rezvani and I'm an assistant professor at Husson University, and in this lesson we will discuss integrating resources. There are two main ways for enhancing the dissemination of your work and ideas using external resources. The first is text. This includes citations of credible literature. The second includes visuals such as photos, videos, and general aesthetic. When using any of these enhancements, it's important to understand what to use, why, when, and how to use them, as well as how to properly cite the original source. In this video, I will cover each of these items, beginning with the use of text, followed by the use of visuals. When you are referencing existing literature, it's important that this supports the claims that you are making and what makes your work meaningful. You want the literature to be credible, which is often peer-reviewed and published in peer-reviewed journal articles. Relevant, is it connected to the content that you are discussing? And it should be a primary source. So rather than referring to an article that cites another article, you would go straight to that primary source. This was the research that showed this evidence that I am claiming. So why use text? Just as building scaffolding helps hold pieces together and support as you move to the next level, so do these citations further support the relevance of the work that you are presenting. This leaves a breadcrumb trail for your audience to follow, and it also impacts your professionalism and the tone of your work. You have done the work and learned about what is known, what is relevant, and this enables the identification of the gap in understanding and supports that you have a solid foundation that you are coming from with your work. When would you use text citations? When you are making a claim. So here I have pulled an example paper and we will walk through this to see how it is used. So this example here, this introduction, shows that the claim is grounded in previous credible works. The citations can also illustrate that multiple studies have been found as evidence to support the claim. You may see two different publications cited following a single claim. I've pulled the first sentences from a paper on puppy socialization as a model for the integration of citations. And as you can see here, within the first two sentences of the paper, there are four claims made and each is cited. It can sometimes feel like a lot of citations when you're reading through an introduction or a discussion part of a paper, but it's important to show that what you're basing your work on is solid and credible. Note that this citation style that you see here is one that you will commonly come across in journal articles. In contrast to APA, the references are given numbers that are used for in-text citations, and the references are listed chronologically as they appear in the publication. APA formatting, in contrast, includes the author's names and the publication date for in-text citations and has an alphabetical list of the references at the end. There are also differences in the full citation format. For example, I have used APA formatting for the citation of the article from which this content is extracted, as you can see down here below. You can see as compared to the citations in the article itself that the placement of the year of publication differs, as well as some of the punctuation use. We will cover more on APA formatting later in this lesson, but I did want to acknowledge that there are other formats that you will see in your studies, and journals specify their formatting requirements for each submission. How can you use text resources? Again, you will put these right in the text, in the body of the text that you are using. And it's beneficial that when you are citing in text that you are paraphrasing the information rather than providing direct quotes. And again, you will have them in your reference list at the end of your work. So here again is an example where you will see these numbers that indicate the in-text citation. When you are using APA formatting to give your reference list, you will have again this in-text parenthetical, which has the author's name and the date, as well as the reference list, which is a complete full citation of that article. So here you can see this Howell was taken, and there were multiple authors as indicated here, and the publication year. So often you will be asked to use APA, though this may differ as mentioned previously. And every part of the formatting matters. So you want to pay attention to the order of the items, the punctuation, what is in italics, what is not, and also looking at the in-text citation note. So as I was saying, there are 3 articles or authors here, and so you only are using the first author's name. If there are 2 authors, then both names are included with the ampersand between. And for the complete citation, you will have all of the authors listed out, the year of the publication and the article title, followed by the journal name, volume or issue if relevant, and then finally the page numbers at the end. The DOI is the Digital Object Identifier, which functions as a permanent URL for the resource. So this is similar to an ISBN for a book. You may or may not be required to include the DOI in your citations, and the citation that you see here is for a journal article. So depending on what the resource is, there will be a different format that you will use, be it a book or a website. For example, videos found on YouTube require a different complete APA citation than do the journal articles. If you are seeking further guidance on this, Purdue University is a great resource for APA formatting guidance, referred to as Purdue OWL. And that is this information here. For your visuals, this is when you are using a relevant visual to increase the understanding of your audience. And this might be a picture, a graph, a video. It might be how you are using color or the aesthetic of your work. It might be for a presentation or for a paper. The key here is, again, to make sure that it is relevant to your content that you're discussing. And really consider what format you are using. So here you can see there is a bar chart or a pie chart, a bar graph. So you really want to be mindful of what is the most effective way to present your information, because the goal is really to scaffold that audience understanding. Why would you include visuals? So this offers an enhancement of a new perspective, deeper clarity. It gives an example for your audience. It also can set the tone and maintain the tone throughout your work. So we respond to visuals and imagery and colors. So adding these gives another piece for your audience to connect with as they're moving through your work. It also gives a sense of your personal voice. You can make it unique and make it yours in how you present the information that you have. And again, building that cohesion across your work. The brain does not need to reset every time there is a change or a shift in the visual information that's being received. The format and arrangement can change while still remaining within this boundaries of your personal style. So if you look at these 3 pictures here, they're all quite different in content, but they also share these very stylistically similar attributes that can help maintain the tone of the presentation. When would you use these visuals and cite them? So you're using them to complement the text, or you might use them as standalone information. So a visual would be helpful when you are trying to give new information or if you're trying to increase the understanding. And you can use this either by itself. You might have a slide that has only an image, or you might have a slide that has text as well. And oftentimes it's more helpful to look at a graph than to hear about the data or read it in text, such as what is shown here. So describing this layout of how the experiment was conducted would be a lot more difficult and harder for your audience to visualize than just seeing a picture of what the experimental setup was. Similarly, this graph, it's a lot easier sometimes just to be able to look at the visual, see that relationship between the data points, and understand what the findings were in this way rather than have it described. So these images here from an initial and second complementary study are showing the experimental layout and the results. So when you are using the visuals, you want to make sure that you are deliberate in what you are using. So be mindful of how it looks, the color, the tone, what the content is. Think about the spacing, how complex the overall image is. If there's clutter, you want to adjust the transparency and the size, layer, what is on top of what. You can see here that I have made this text box somewhat transparent and overlaid it on top of my image because I didn't want my image to cover the text. And you want to refer to the image in your text or narration. So talking about what you have and why you are integrating that into your work is an important component as well. And remember to keep the aspect ratio the same as you're working with these images so that you're not distorting the image. So here you can see that I have used an image of dragon fruit and some other fruits as well. And while it's an interesting and pleasing image, it really doesn't seem to have anything to do with the content of this lesson. However, in this case, that is exactly the point, is that I'm using it as an example of the content-image disconnect. So as I am talking about this information, you're hoping to find ways that it is connected to the content, but there is no connection there. And so that just requires a little bit more attention and distraction for your audience rather than having the image enhance and corroborate with what I am saying. So I am also taking the time to communicate the relevance of the image, which is helpful as I'm guiding you through. Otherwise, you would be potentially wondering why there was dragon fruit in this slide. So as you are using visuals, it's important that you are citing them as well. And of course, the first step of that is to make sure that you have permission to use the visual. So to use the visual, you need to either have direct permission from the source or there needs to be general permission provided. So just hopping online and grabbing an image does not mean that you have permission to use that image. You would need to go to the person who created that image and ask for permission to use it. If there is general permission, that means that the image is tagged with being part of public domain, Creative Commons, it's royalty free. So you can go to specific sites such as Pixabay to find images that have this general permission, and then you do not have to worry about gaining specific individual permission to use them. If you have taken images that you want to integrate in, you can cite yourself. If you have friends or people that you know that have said, yes, I can use this, you still want to cite that in there where the source is of the image and give them credit for having created that image. And the format for this citation is really going to be assignment specific and then also, of course, source specific. So for example, Pixabay, again, if you do pull an image from their site, they do provide information on how to cite. For papers, you will have a complete reference list at the end of your work. And for presentations, you might be tasked with including a reference list at the end or including the citations on the given slide. For this presentation, I've included them on the specific slides, as well as including here an example of what an end reference list slide, how it might look. And this is using APA citation formatting as this end slide with cited journal articles included. As this is meant to be a general overview on integrating resources, specifics might vary given your course, so please reach out to your instructor with any questions that you have. Thank you.